glad he chose that seat because this is the only ear that I can hear with. Please, can I ask you all to turn off your phones? At least turn the sound down if you're filming. And just on the point of filming, you're more than welcome to do a video and so on, but it must not be posted just for your personal use. You can't put it on the internet in part or in whole. If you think you want to do that, please turn your camera off. And please, all the people at the top, be very, very careful. We've never been in this scenario before where it's like this. And I know you like the Jess Harper roll, but we don't want it down the middle of the stage. Well, it's been 3 long years. And we've missed it, haven't we?
I don't know, is this a dream we're having, or are we all really here finally? I guess we are. You know, I love you all, and I'm so glad to see everybody. This has been a real fun party. I waited just as long for this as you guys did, believe me, and I'm loving every second of it.
Yeah, he has. He's been champing at the bit. It's been really horrible. We've
finally got him out of Bangkok and got him home to ride the horse.
We got lots of questions sent in. Unfortunately, we don't have a roving mic up there, so this is what we're going to do. We've got the questions here.
But before we do that, if I may,
yeah, of course.
I want to introduce some friends of mine that are here. You've seen them roaming around, having a good time, I hope. But 2 very, very dear friends of mine, Keith and Charlotte. You have seen Keith and Charlotte before, and he's been to many of these. I call him my illegitimate son because I've known him since he was 12 years old, and he's only 13 now. But and now the next one is a very, very dear close friend of mine, neighbor, shooting partner, hamburger eating partner, and outside of Jennifer, the guy who throws me under the bus more than anybody else. And when he throws me under the bus and rolls over me, he doesn't stop there. He comes back and forth and back. My dear, dear friend, Ken Stormer. Thank you all. Thank you.
What I'm going to do is I will say the name of the person that sent in the question. We'll get through as many as we possibly can. When I say your name, stand up and wave, and we'll say hello to you. And then I'm going to read your question out so that Bob can hear it. Then it's over to him. So it's going to be as simple as that. We don't have a great deal of time, so we're going to pretty well get into it straight away. But have you anything else you want to?
No, we'll say it'll happen as we go along here.
All right. And well, the first question is from Ken Stormer.
What did I say?
No, honestly, it's not. I was just trying to scare you.
Well, you did scare me.
The first question is from Sally Barnson. Now, Sally's waited 4 years to ask this question. So,
Microphone.
she's right there.
4 years to ask this question, Sally.
Hello?
Mic. That's it.
What is this? Am I doing this?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do it, Waffle.
How about this one? Is it working good?
No, I moved over. It's so Sally says, have you got any glasses? I can't read the questions.
You can't?
No, my eyes.
I can't read them either.
After you broke your leg on Wagon Train, how long did it take for you to get your confidence back to do your own stunts again?
As soon as I took the dadgum cast off. That's it.
There you go, 4 years for that. Okay, the second one is from Peter Jovich. Peter, where are you? Okay, hi mate.
Hey, Peter.
Which did you enjoy playing most? The good guy or the bad guy? The good guy or the bad guy?
Good guy, Waffle.
I have to be very honest. I love playing the bad guy. Before I did, of course, Lay on Me a Wagon Train in Emergency, you have to be the good guy in those and the hero and everything. But starting in the business, up until I did that, I usually, was cast as the bad guy, and I had fun. Those are the meaty, good, fun parts. And after doing Laramie, Wagon Train, and Emergency, for all those years, I finally got to be a bad guy again in my favorite role of Sneed in the Gatling gun. I had so much fun playing that part. Now, I know a lot of you didn't like that because I was the bad guy, but I had so much fun.
Even the name.
Yeah. Is that a better name for a bad guy? Sneed.
Patty Cooney. Not sure I've seen. Oh, you're there.
Honey.
Okay, personal question. Okay. What is one of your favourite songs, and what style of dance is your favourite?
Say it again.
What is one of your favourite songs, and what style of dance is your favourite?
Oh, okay. My favorite, one of my very favorite songs is The Nearness of You, which Hoagie Carmichael wrote. And my favorite dance, of course, is the jitterbug. And the Okie Stomp.
What's the Okie Stomp?
Just getting out there listening to old cowboy music and stomping your boots. and hugging the gal.
Now this one's from Alexa Ewan. And Alexa is where? Oh, hi Alexa. Do you have a favourite episode of Laramie?
All of them.
That's really a tough question. If I was going to say yes, I had a favorite one. I had more than a favorite one, and not necessarily the episode itself, but the ones that John McIntyre were in. I really had a great time working with John McIntyre when he was the guest. And ones with Dan Duryea. Dan was a fabulous guy, and of course he was in the very first episode. So those are my favorites, and I loved doing every one of them. So it's very hard to pick one of the other.
What was your favourite fight scene?
Fight scene?
Yeah.
Duel at Alta Mesa. I like that fight scene. I had Hal Needham was the guy that I hired to double the other actor. You all know I don't let other actors fight with me because I don't trust them. So I'd always get Hal Needham to double the other people. And Hal was a really good fight guy. And we staged that, directed it, and put on a pretty good fight.
Who's seen it? Who's seen the fight? Yeah, I thought you would. Now, Marguerite Gear. Oh,
There's Marguerite. Hi, honey.
What were your favourite locations for filming TV or movies?
Ooh. Well, let's start with TV. We shot a lot of Laramies in Utah, Kanab and St. George. And Kanab was a fabulous place to go and shoot a Western. So I really enjoyed that on the TV stuff. We also shot up in Lone Pine, Northern California for Laramie, and a couple other shows that I did. But as far as motion pictures, well, I've been very fortunate there. I've made films in 17 countries. And I loved working in Japan. I loved working in Germany. I loved Norway is a beautiful country. I had a lot of fun on location in that. I think the most fun I've ever had on location on a film was in Spain, in The Return of the Magnificent Seven with Yul Brynner. So those were great locations.
You remember when we used to do these, and we'd have the newbies won't know, but we'd have what was called a dumb Bob moment. And well, some of these were so dumb it was criminal. So I think it'd be quite nice for us to reintroduce that. So now, I haven't asked him for anything, so I don't know what you're going to get. So come on, want a dumb Bob moment?
I'm very sorry, and I'm happy to say there are no dumb Bob moments.
No, come on.
I got away free this time. There's been too many before, but I'm lucky I don't have one this time. I wish I did to tell you, but
I really, just think, I want you to think hard, you know, in 3 years, you're telling me, in 3 years, not one dumb Bob moment. That's what you're telling me, that's what you're telling these people.
No.
Nothing?
No, nothing I'm proud to say.
Nothing?
What do you-
Well, let me just help you out a little bit here.
Why, yeah, Johnny?
What about maybe a dumb Bob moment with a truck? Does it ring a bell? No?
No.
No? Horse trailer?
I did not rat you out, Bob.
No, Jennifer did.
I really wanted to forget that one. Oh, you got me. All right.
You want me to throw him off of this side of the ridge on the way home?
I paid for this one with Jennifer.
Johnny, you.
I have an electric gate going off my property, and I drive an F-150 Ford truck, and I go up to the gate, I hit the button in my car, the gate opens up, I start to go through it, and as I'm going through it, I hit the button and they close. But I'm out. Well, this time, your horse had to go to the vet for a checkup, so we hooked up the trailer and put the horse in it, and Jennifer and I are driving out, and we get down to the gate, it opens up, we go through, I get halfway through, I hit the button, and the gate closes on the horse trailer, blows a tire, wrecks the gate, and it was a terrible mess. And, that's pretty dumb, Bob.
Because he didn't tell you how much mess the horse made inside the truck.
Well, poor guy, we got him out, we had to change that
Johnny,
tire.
welcome.
I guess I did goof up there, didn't I?
Don't you just love it?
Jennifer will never let me live it down, I know that.
Moral of the story, when he says no, a dumb Bob moment, just don't believe it. Talking about trucks. Chevy, Ford.
Ford.
No. This is a
He drives a semi Chevy. Drives like a semi.
it's good radio though. I think this is a great question. This is from an absent member called Claudette. I think it's Gagnon. Claudette Gagnon. Now, listen to this. Your performance in Wagon Train episode, The Story of Cain, is worthy of an award. No, who's seen the story? So you know what I'm talking about. Since your eyes are so expressive to the point where words are not needed, how much of a challenge was it for you as an actor to be so amazing in those scenes where you could not see?
Well, that's a great question. People probably don't know it, but I used to work for the Junior Blind in Los Angeles years ago when I was doing Laramie, and support them and take blind kids fishing and stuff like that. And I spent a lot of time with the Junior Blind, and I learned a lot about it at the Institute and everything. And I guess I played on that a little bit when I had to do the blind scenes. And I thought about those kids and the way they looked and the way they moved their heads and the eyes and so forth. And yeah, I used that as an actor would do, hopefully. And apparently it worked a little. So anyway, that's how I did that.
Was it tough to do, or was it no tougher than doing anything else?
All of that stuff is tough to do in your mind, you know, when you're working and trying to remember your lines and work with the other people. But no, I don't think it was that bad, that difficult. It was a great part. to do. So when you get immersed in something like that, I don't think you think about the difficulties or whatever. But if I could reiterate one thing about the blind kids, I took 20 of them on a fishing trip one time to a you catch 'em place, and the facility was very happy that I was going to do it. And of course, I had a couple of helpers from the facility with me. We got this bus, and we took these blind kids. I called this fishing place up and said, "Hey, I want to bring 20 people to fish. Are you ready for it?" And they said, "Sure, bring them." So bus gets there, and 20 blind kids get off this bus at this fishing place, and this guy, he couldn't believe it. And they've got the ready-made, bamboo poles and everything, and they put the bait on it. Well, it costs like $2 a fish or something. And I had enough bucks in my pocket for those kids to catch a bunch of fish. And little did I know that blind kids could catch 30 fish in 5 minutes. And I'm telling you, they filled a boatload of fish. I mean, the sensitivity in a blind child, which is interesting too, because that helped me learn stuff, was so incredible to see. I couldn't catch the fish as fast as they are, so you catch them. But anyway, at the end of it, I went in to pay the tab, and the guy that owns the place, I'd never been there before, I didn't know it was him. And I said, "Okay, what's the damage?" And he says, I can't charge you a thing for that. He said, "I've never seen anything like that in my life." He says, "It's on the house." What a neat man to do that. Absolutely, I was very impressed.
Really? Oh, it's a nice story. Georgia Eddy has a question. Is Georgia here still? Oh, hi, Georgia. If you had filmed another Western series, what type of character would you have liked to have played?
If I did another Western series?
Yeah.
Well, without a doubt, I'd like it to be as close to Jess Harper as it could be without being Jess Harper, because I think I could make him whatever the character was, but I would base him on Jess Harper.
Because Coop was different, wasn't it? Coop became very different to Jess Harper.
Yes, hopefully I arranged it that way. When I was asked to go into Wagon Train after Laramie, it was a matter of a week. And I did not want to bring Jess Harper as to become Cooper Smith. So I made a transition there that I changed everything about him. The brown hat, brown gun belt, different boots, different clothes, different everything. And of course the writing was different than it would be written for Jess as it was for Coop. But I made sure that nobody was going to say, "Oh, that's Jess Harper playing Cooper Smith." And I don't think anybody would. I don't know. I think I brought Cooper Smith to life as another entity rather than Jess Harper.
What about Jess was always filthy dirty, wasn't he? He was always in his character. And Coop was always spotlessly clean. How did that work?
Well, it wasn't my fault. Here I am. I'm the scout on a wagon train, right? And so I had the makeup man do all the dirty and the dust and dust my hat on the first episode. So I looked like a trail rider that's been on, And anyway, that episode got shot. Well, I found out that Lou Wasserman, the head of Universal Studios, called the producer, and he said, "If I see Bob Fuller dirty one more time, you're fired." So from then on, it was a clean scout.
Were you happy about that?
No, not at all. I thought it was ridiculous. I'd ride out to shoot the Indians and do this and come back and look all clean and spiffy and wear my hat. I didn't like that.
Okay, I got one from Ellen Bird. Hi, Ellen. In addition to acting believably in imaginary situations, which you did very well, you were amazing at portraying strong, deep emotions of all sorts with your entire being. Is that something you always did naturally, or did you have to study and learn how to portray emotions so convincingly?
Interesting question. No. I think I explained to you all a long time ago about learning how to act and what it takes and the way I was taught by Richard Boone. And I'm not a method actor, although I studied in New York with Sandy Meisner, who does teach a little of the method because Dick sent me back there. But I said to Dick, I said, now wait a minute, you're sending me back to a man that teaches the method and you don't teach it. He said, Bob, just take a little and leave a little. And I did, because Sandy was a heck of a good teacher. But Dick taught us one important thing: to act believably under imaginary circumstances and to act as if it was happening to you, as if. So everything that I did came behind here was as if it was happening to Robert Fuller. So those emotions were my emotions, not what was on paper.
Right, right. I remember seeing you acted even when you were in the background of scenes. You continued acting, even though you might be a shadow in the scene. I remember when you did Return of the Seven, and you may recall when Yul Brynner goes up to save Manuel from being punched by this cowboy, and you're at the real background, way back on that scene. And when Yul Brynner punches, and if you've seen Return of the Seven, you may not have seen this, so watch it. But when Yul Brynner punches this guy, you actually flinch, and you can see you right in the back. So was that because you?
No, I was immersed in the scene,
Yeah.
as if it was actually happening. And to me, I would have done the same thing. Robert Fuller would have done the same thing that Vin did in a situation like that.
Right, but it
And
wasn't.
you learn as an actor to listen and look and work to react to things that happen.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So you played it as an immersion in the scene rather than a conscious, I need to carry on and, I better do this.
Oh, absolutely. No, yeah.
Wow,
Yeah.
wow. Okay, a cheery question here from Swiss Miss. What was your biggest challenge during the pandemic?
Not being able to see all you guys and knowing that we weren't going to have a fandom and getting them all canceled and everything. And again, I want to thank everybody for, the guest book and staying in touch and letting me know how you all were doing. And I tried to do the same for you all because it was a desperate 3 years for all of us, and more so for probably a lot of you than it was for me. I was fortunate enough to live on a ranch where I could go outdoors without a mask on and walk around. But people that lived in towns that were locked down in their apartments, it just had to be the worst thing in the world. And I've talked to so many of you in the last couple of days that say that Laramie and Wagon Train was a big savior. You watch something on TV that you enjoyed over and over and over again during this terrible lockdown time. Well, thank God it's over with, and I hope it's over for dadgum good.
Have you heard of monkeypox?
Did you just hear that the CDC is now saying masks are going to be, you have to wear masks because of that? Not me. You don't have monkeypox, do you?
Well, I was swinging through the trees out there. I don't know what.
That's how you got here?
Right. Jan Petticord. Where's Jan? Oh, you're over there. Right, okay. She wants to know how you were chosen or considered for the role in Sinai Commandos.
Oh, that's kind of interesting. I had just finished a movie in Norway and Germany called Midsummer Night, and after I finished the picture, of course, I went back to the United States, and then they got the picture ready to release, and I went back to Germany and I toured all over Germany for 2 or 3 weeks with the movie, going on stage, press stuff. And while I was there, the 6-day war had just ended in Israel. And most filmmakers are very quick to try and, do a movie about stuff like that. So this German-Israeli company came up with a movie called Sinai Commandos, which was a true story about the raid on the radar station at Sharm el-Sheikh. And they wanted an American actor. And they found out, and I had a German agent at that time also. And they found out that I was in Germany and had just finished the movie and was there. And they called my agent and sent a script. And I looked at it and I said, absolutely, I'd love to go. I've never been to Israel. It was a very good part. So I immediately was hired, sight unseen. And I remember when I landed in Tel Aviv, the producers and everybody were there, and I know they were sweating to see if I looked anything Israeli, which they call sabra. And of course I did, because I had the dark hair. I had dark hair in those days. And I remember them saying, "Oh no, it's okay. He's sabra. He'll be sabra." And they were all happy. So yeah, I played the actual army captain of the Israeli army. At the time of my life, they were the happiest people in the world winning that war. It was a great experience over there.
But you had some dangerous moments, I believe, as well.
Well, we did, absolutely. The war hadn't been over very long, and in fact, we had an American that was killed on patrol one night while we were there. 2 nights before I got there, they exploded a bomb in the Queen of Sheba hotel where I stayed. And one day, while we're working out in the Sinai, all of a sudden I heard, and we had a lot of real soldiers with us, including the actors, because they were all in the army too. All of a sudden I heard somebody say, "Don't anybody move." And I knew what that meant, being in the army myself. It meant we were in the middle of a minefield. And immediately everybody, they knew, they're soldiers too anyway. So everybody had to stop, and they brought in this group of people, and they came around and dug up 6 or 7 anti-tank mines that were in the area that we actually had tire tracks this close to some of them when we came on to start shooting the scene. And they dug them up and got them out of there. And that night, one of the camels that was loose in that area stepped on one that they didn't get and was blown up. So well, you know, the war had only been over about 3 weeks or so, 4 weeks, and it was still pretty dangerous grounds around there.
Was that the same camel that dumped you into the sea?
No, it should have been.
It's called Gambler.
I rode a lot of horses. I rode saddle broncs. I rode some bucking horses, but I've never rode a camel. And I thought, what the heck? Camels are going to be easy. So that's 2 weeks into the movie. We're out in the desert, and they say, okay, this is where the scenes all start, where you guys now, your vehicles have been blown up, but the Bedouins are going to bring you camels to ride on. So here we go. I think it's 5 of us in the squad or something, and a girl, 6 people. And here they come that morning down the road, leading all these big camels. And so they get there, and all the other actors who are Israelis have ridden camels before. So they said, all right, pick out your camels, and everybody goes over, grabs a camel, whatever. And they said, all right, Robert, this will be your camel. I said, okay. I said, what's the deal? So and they're called cushing. What the Bedouin that runs the camel does, he goes, and the camel goes down like this. And you get on the camel, and he'll go, then the camel gets up. But the camel gets up like this thing. And you only got one thing, it's around his nose, that's all right there, period. So I get on this camel. He's a big camel. And by the time he gets up to the thing, I'm looking at 10 feet to the ground. That's for sure. And all of a sudden, this camel, here's his head, turns around and comes right at my face like this and goes, bailed off that thing. I wasn't going to get back on that camel. The guy says, oh, I forgot to tell you, you have to have a stick. And when you get on, if he does that, you hit him with a stick and he won't do it anymore. And another time, I had to have the girl riding on the back with me, and the camel ran off with us, just like a runaway horse. There was no way to stop this camel. And they can run pretty fast, but we're out in the desert, in a wadi with lots of sand and hillside sand. And the girl's screaming, and I said, just be quiet and listen to me. I said, you see that big thing of sand over there? I said, when we reach it, just put your arms around me and bail with me. We're going off. And she did. And we hit sort of on a hill like this as we went by, and the two of us just dove off onto the sand. The camel just kept on going. They're a wild, nasty animal.
Okay, let's have a look. One from Diana Haynes. Diana, wait.
Over here.
Hi, Diane.
Oh, hiya. What do you consider to be your best attribute besides your knees?
I don't know how to answer that. Diana, now you put me under the bus. Of all people.
No, we want an answer. You don't get away with it. We need an answer.
Other than my bad knees? I don't know. No brain, who knows?
Can we have a show of hands? How many newbies have never been to these before?
I have.
Hey, y'all. Thanks for being here. So happy to see you.
That's a lot. That's a lot. I tell you what, just for fun, because they've never heard it, why don't you tell one of the icon stories? So one of the either Tony Curtis or Rhonda Fleming. Pick one of those stories that you want to tell. Well, Rhonda Fleming. Tell Tony Curtis, I think so. Roll the cameras.
This one could get me in trouble. I don't think I've, maybe in private I may have told one or two of you, well, this story about Tony Curtis.
Sorry, just before you go, how many people have heard the Tony Curtis story?
Wow. Well, that's not a lot.
No, it's not really, less than I thought. But anyway, go.
Well, I don't feel so bad selling it. Since some have already heard it. Anyway, quickly. On the Universal lot, we all, of course, I was doing the Army at the time, we all had dressing rooms. Now, down one side street off of the main street were a bank of dressing rooms, 6 or 7 in a row, and it was called Whiskey Row. And the reason it was called Whiskey Row was because the first dressing room was Ward Bond, the second one was Terry Wilson, the third was Frank McGrath, the next one was John Smith, the next one was mine, and the next one was Lee Marvin's. So figure that out. Whiskey Row. Directly across the street, not any further than we are over there, were 2 monstrous dressing rooms. One for Rock Hudson and one for Tony Curtis. So we would see Rock and we'd see Tony on the lot, all the time. But usually after work, we'd all end up in my room. I had a pretty good bar in there. A lot of the stunt guys and Lee Marvin and a few of them would all hang out in my room for a couple hours and talk about the day and have some fun. And this one particular night, I guess it was about 10 o'clock, Tony Curtis comes back on the lot in his Rolls Royce, and he pulls up in front of his dressing room. My door's open, it's a hot summer night, and I see Tony, we all can see him. He gets out and he starts to go into his room, and I said, "Hey Tony, come on, you want to come in and have a drink with us?" And he gave me one of these. And I thought, well, that's kind of nasty. I said, "Why would he do that?" And I had something to drink.
Gotta be.
And Lee Marvin sitting there, and I said, I think I'll go over and pee in his gas tank. And Lee Marvin said, "You wouldn't." And I said, "Watch." And I got up, walked across the street, and I peed at Tony Curtis's gas tank. And he came out while I was doing that, and I said, "You better get your behind back in there. And he turned around, went back in his dresser, and he saw what I was doing. And I did. And I came back, and a little while later, he snuck out real quick, got in his car, and drove off. And we finished our evening and went home. So the next morning, I come back to work and got my wardrobe in there, go to makeup, I'm all set, got my boots, spurs, my gun belt, and everything. I'm ready to go, and I'm on the set. And the assistant director comes up and he says, Bob, he says, Mr. Wasserman wants to see you in the office. Now, for those that don't know who Mr. Wasserman was, Lou Wasserman was the biggest mogul in Hollywood at that time. He owned Universal Studios. He was my boss. And he owned the Music Corporation of America. He was a giant, a wonderful, wonderful man, but very powerful. And Mr. Wasserman wants to see you in his office, which is up in a big tower. And I thought, God, I wonder why Mr. Wasserman, I never called him Lou. He asked me all the time, he says, call me Lou. And I said, I can't, I just can't bring it to myself to call you Lou. I always called him Mr. Wasserman. I said, I wonder what Mr. Wasserman wants with me. So I said, okay. And they said, yeah, you've got 20, 30 minutes off, you can go. So I get down there, go up in the elevator, get up to his secretary, and she looks at me and she says, they're waiting for you. They're waiting for me. So I walk in, Mr. Wasserman's behind his desk, Patrick Kelly is sitting over here. Patrick Kelly is my mentor. He's the one that started me on Laramie. He's a very close friend, and he's the vice president in charge of talent of the whole studio, and we're very close. And he's sitting there, and I'm thinking, wow. So I walk up to Lou Wasserman's desk, and Lou Wasserman says, did you? And I look over at my friend Patrick Kelly, and he won't look at me. He's looking out the window. I was looking for some support. No, not my friend. Did you pee in Tony Curtis's gas tank last night? And I went, I did. I forgot about it. I said, yes, sir, I did. And I look at Patrick again, and he definitely is not going to laugh. He wants to laugh. I know he wants to laugh, but he can't. That's his boss, too. So I look back at Mr. Wasserman, he looks up at me, and he says, well, don't ever do it again. Get out of here. Needless to say, Tony was very friendly to me.
Is that where BP comes from? BP, petrol.
Anyway, I've never told that story like to a lot of people.
You could have burnt yourself, you know.
What?
You could have burnt yourself.
But you know what, at this age, I don't care.
Now then, we have a question from Vernette Goats.
Ah, Burnett.
Vernette isn't here, so she sent this one in, but hi Vernette, when you see this, when filming the fight scenes, did they use several cameras, set them up at different angles, do several takes to get plenty of options when putting the scene together? In other words, maybe Bob could sort of explain a bit of how they go about getting great footage.
Well, some fight scenes, if they're, we only had one camera on the Duel at Alta Mesa, but we arranged that fight scene, and it was done in sequences, so that everything, a lot of you have seen Tony and I explain the fight stuff before, about missing this much, and camera angles is what does it. So if you only have one camera, you have to really work, do several different shots and split your fight scene up a little bit, and then they put it together. If you've got two cameras, it even becomes more difficult because you have to make those moves for 2 cameras. So when the punch looks good here, you've got to bring the person around for the rest of the fight to the other camera so that punch looks good. But that way you could do a lot longer fight scene with 2 cameras. But 2 cameras cost a lot more money in the picture business. You have to have cameraman, camera assistants, and everything else. So basically, we usually always have 1 camera.
How long would it take then to choreograph and rehearse? Let's take Juliet Aldermesa, which wasn't a long fight, but it was a very varied and exciting fight. How long would that take to put together?
Well, it was the first thing we did in the day, first shot in the morning. And it probably took Hal and I maybe 30 or 40 minutes to choreograph it. Another 10, 15, 20 minutes to rehearse it. And get ready to get all the furniture that breaks and everything in place and whatever, and get it and shoot it. I imagine everything was done within 2 hours. We did that fight scene, because time is money in the picture business. And we have to shoot X amount of pages a day. So you don't have a lot of time, you gotta move. And probably less than 2 hours.
How long did it take to film 1 episode of Laramie?
5 days, 10 hours a day.
Okay, so you're working full time on
Well,
1 episode every week to week.
absolutely. And we used to do 39 shows a season,
Yeah,
or 32,
yeah.
whatever. So we worked 11 months out of the year. I'd have 1 month off, and the studio would send me on tour all across the country for 3 weeks, 5 cities, doing, Tonight Show, this and that, New York here, Chicago there. And then I come back and I'd have 1 week off before we started the next season.
Did you had like 1 or 2 episodes in the bag by the time they showed the season, so you've got a couple already recorded?
Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you're doing a show a week, we start way before they're going to go on the air.
Right, right. Just talking about the fight scenes, you starred in 2 episodes of Paradise, and this is from Katie Tequila States. Where are you, Katie? Tequila Teas. No? Katie?
When I met Katie, she couldn't spell tequila. Now she's got a bottle in front of her there, right? Is that right? I love her.
We're not embarrassing you, Katie.
No. Oh, well, you're not blushing. Are you? Look at it.
Anyway, you starred in 2 episodes of Paradise with Lee Horsley. In the first one, you're shot by Ethan and you fall down 4 or 5 stairs. Now, we know you did your fight scenes, we know that. Did you actually fall down, do you remember? Did you fall down those stairs?
No, I'd had shoulder surgery way before that, and I think I let Dean Smith fall down the 4 stairs.
You let him?
Yeah.
Oh, he'd be pleased.
Yeah, I got smart at that. I didn't want to hurt myself any more than I'd already been hurt.
Well, she does say she wants to know if it was a dumb Bob moment, so it wasn't a dumb Bob moment.
No, because there's plenty of dumb Bob moments that I have done. I can tell you every morning when I wake up.
Changing a little bit. This is from Karen Jones, who's not with us. She said she heard you're a good cook. Well, I can testify to that. But what is your favourite
You sure
meal?
can. Eats me out of house and home. We call him Hoover.
He said he wouldn't do that. What is his favourite meal? Oh, I'm sorry, I'm talking about you not here. I'm going to do this professionally now, okay. What is your favourite meal, and do you truly enjoy cooking?
What's my favorite meal?
Sweet potato and steak.
That's your favorite.
Oh, it's my favourite meal. Baked beans on toast.
Baked potato and steak. He likes sweet potato.
I knew one of us did, I just didn't know which one it was. No, he's a great cook. I've got to tell you, he's a fabulous cook.
I am.
No, I like to cook. I make stews. I make good pasta sauce and spaghettis and stuff like that. Barbecue a lot, and we eat pretty good though.
Yeah, when I came out after 3 years, Bob said, I got some steaks for us. So we go. And I kid you not, the thing was like half the size of this table. It was like huge. And Jennifer's good too. She's
She's
she
very
makes,
good
what is
too.
that dessert she makes with the marshmallow on the top? No, it's not dessert, with the sweet potato and marshmallow. You know, for Thanksgiving.
Sweet potato.
That's some sort of. No, it's great. Really good.
Mashed sweet potatoes.
Yeah, very, very nice. David Talley. Are you here, David?
No
Anywhere?
here.
Ah, howdy. Is there a role you regret turning down? And is there a role you really wanted but did not get?
No, I turned down a lot of roles, but and I'm glad I turned them down because they didn't turn out to be anything anyway, and I knew they weren't. That's why I turned them down. And I can't think of any role that I wanted that I didn't get because I got 3 great roles. I couldn't have asked for anything better.
Yeah.
No, there isn't anything. No.
There was a time you were considering, I think, doing it yourself, playing John Wesley Hardin. Is that?
Oh yeah, well, yeah, John English, chief of police at Universal, and I wrote a script about John Wesley Hardin. I wanted to play John Wesley Hardin, but we never got it off the ground, so it never came to fruition. So.
Oh, okay. From Julie Falconer. Have you all met Julie?
Yes.
She's got Jess Harper, the face, tattooed on her arm. It's unbelievable, isn't it, Julie? Fabulous.
She's got it tattooed someplace else too. I know, I saw it.
Bob's got a tattoo and it says supercalifragilisticexpialidocious, except in January when it says soup. Is that right, okay.
Yeah, right, okay.
Julie, what sort of horses do you have on the ranch? Do you breed horses? Do you buy and sell them? And how many head of horses could your ranch sustain?
Well, we've only got 2 horses now. We used to have 3. One Jennifer's horse has passed away, but they're quarter horses. My horse and her horse. I think it's more Tony's horse than it is mine. He rides it more than I do. But sustain, well, I've got a 32-acre ranch, and I grow 28 acres of coastal Bermuda hay, and we have 2 donkeys, 2 miniature donkeys. So I wouldn't put more than 3 horses and 2 donkeys on 28 acres because they eat it up pretty good. Yeah, it's a small ranch.
Yeah.
Now, Ken, for that matter, has got thousands of acres and hundreds of horses racing all over the place, plus cattle.
Oh, you finished?
Stay with me.
Okay. Oh, I like this. This is from Judith Lewis, who is not here, and she's probably very glad. This is a very thin line. There is a very thin line between an enthusiastic fan and a crazed stalker. Please ask Robert if we adoring women ever scare him.
No, I'm afraid I scare them. No, they could never scare me. I love them all.
Have you ever had a stalker?
Yeah.
I have.
Who has? Wait, are you going to tell us about it? Let's keep it going. You're going to, what? And so, tell us about the stalker.
No, it's just
Okay. I tried, guys, I tried. Denise Salto.
There's Denise.
While You may not be aware of this actually. While making Laramie, were you and John ever aware of the frequency that a certain prop, namely what we commonly call the ugly green lamp, appeared? Sometimes twice in the same episode.
No.
Well, it's very true.
An arc light? A big,
No, lamp
Yeah.
on a table. It's in
oh, on a table.
In 30 episodes.
Oh, no, I wasn't aware of that. That's the prop department's job.
But it was a famous lamp, wasn't it? It appeared in many, many different shows.
Not just Laramie.
Yeah. We thought it should have been in the credits at the beginning. Gail Fox. Gusso.
Gus. Hello, Gus.
When did you learn to ride horses and shoot guns, and who were your teachers?
The first horse I ever rode in my life was in Key West, Florida. A friend of mine bought a big old black stallion and brought it down to the beach one day. Once of us we were in high school, and I got on him bareback, not for very long, but that was my first on a horse. But then after that, when I moved to Hollywood years later and met my best pal Chuck Courtney, who played Dan Reed on the Lone Ranger, was a cowboy himself, had horses. He actually taught me how to ride, how to draw a gun, how to shoot, and do everything around horses. He taught me the hard way too. He was an excellent teacher. He was in class with me with Dick Boone. And Dick, being the great teacher that he was in Westerns, being 32 Westerns in prime time at that time, he wanted all his students, and it was about 15, 18 of us, to learn how to ride because there were more Westerns being cast. So every Saturday, Chuck would take the whole cast out to a riding academy place, rent horses, and we'd all work with Chuck. Now, Chuck was a heck of a horse rider. He'd had horses all his life. And when he teaching me to ride, he put me on the first horse, and these are gentle horses, at one of those wrencher horse things. And I'd be riding along, and if my elbows were up like this a little bit, he'd ride by with a big stick and ride right past me and I'd go whack, and hit that elbow. And a couple minutes later, I'd be out there again, bam, hit that again. And pretty soon, I learned to keep those arms down like this when I was riding. And then if I bent over too much like this, he'd ride by and smack you in the back. And I learned pretty quick how to ride a horse from Chuck, and so did everybody else. And he was also very quick with a gun. He taught me all the gun stuff. Yeah.
But he was a stuntman.
He was an actor, and he also did stunt work. Yeah.
Yeah. You and him worked together to get a part for you in Teenage Thunder.
That was the first picture I ever did, and he was the star and I was the co-star in it. Yeah, but we were friends before that.
But you set up a fight scene, the two of you.
Oh, the two of us. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Because who they wanted Michael Landon originally?
No, they wanted Eddie Burns.
Eddie Burns, okay.
For my part, but Chuck kept pushing for me, and I kept rereading for the director. And this director, Paul Helmick, really nice guy, kept leaning toward Eddie Burns because Eddie and I, this is 1956, so we're both starting to come up the ladder a little tiny bit as actors on the same parallel. And for some reason, he thought that he'd be a better heavy. So anyway, Chuck came up with the idea. He said, I guess I interviewed 3 times with the director and I didn't get it. So one day Chuck called me on the phone. I had a 50 Ford convertible at that time. And there's a scene in the movie where I drive in a convertible and have a scene with Chuck in a gas station and a fight. And Chuck says, here's the deal. He said, tomorrow morning I'm going to call Paul Helmick and tell him I need to talk to him. He's going to come to my house at exactly 10 o'clock. He said, at exactly 10 o'clock, I'm going to be out there and I have a big bucket of water and a rag, It's going to be sitting there. You're going to be down the block in your car. And when Paul Helmut pulls up and comes over, you're going to scream up in the car, and we're going to do that scene, the fight, and everything. Why not? Let's go. We rehearsed the fight. We knew how to do that fight. So sure enough, the next morning I parked down the street. Paul Helmut pulls up. He has no idea what's going on. Comes up, walks up to Chuck. I see Chuck look down. I put her on. Burn rubber, pull up, stop. We play the scene. Do what I do to him. Jump out of the car. We have the whole fight. It gets over with. Paul Helmut looks and says, "You got the job." That was it. That's how I got Teenage Thunder.
Still really talking about Chuck, Ray Burnett. Ray? Hi, Ray. He's asking how you and Chuck met.
Oh, very funny. Chuck was my dearest, very, very best friend for 100 years. We saw each other every day, talked together every day. We did everything together. He was just a great guy, good, very close pal. But the way I met him, one night, I was just started in the business as an extra, and I got invited to a party with a lot of other extra and upcoming actor people. I don't know how I got invited, but I did. So I went to this party, and during it I ran out of cigarettes. And I went to the girl that was giving the party, and I asked her, I said, I just ran out of smokes. Do you have any cigarettes? And she says, yeah, I got a couple of cartons up on the top of the refrigerator. Go help yourself to a pack. So I walked into the kitchen, and there's several people in the kitchen having a drink and talking. And I walk up to the refrigerator, and Chuck is standing in front of the refrigerator like this, leaning against the refrigerator. Now the cigarettes are back up here. So I couldn't reach over. And I said, excuse me, I want to get something. And he wouldn't, and he didn't move. He wouldn't move. Just looked at me. I thought, here we go. And I said, hey man, can you move? I'm trying to get these cigarettes right here. And he pushed me out of the way. Well, we started a fight, the two of us. Yeah. Very quickly over with because several people broke it up immediately. And I didn't see him after that. I left, he left, whatever, but that's how we started out, not liking each other for 1 second. The next day, I'm invited to a swimming party out in the valley by a girl whose father was a big wheel at Universal Studios. And in those days, there were streetcars, and the streetcars ended at Coldwater Canyon, and she lived way beyond it. And I said, I've only got enough money to take a streetcar to the end. And she says, don't worry, tell me what time you're going to get on it there, and I'll have somebody from the party come and get you. And I said, okay, great. So I called her, told her I'm on the 8 o'clock streetcar or whatever, and it's going to be in Coldwater Canyon. I get off the streetcar, and I'm standing there for about 10 minutes, and all of a sudden I hear this car screaming around the corner, chopped and channeled green Chevy convertible, and guess who's driving? Chuck Courtney. He pulls up and he looks at me, and I look at him. He didn't know I was the one that he didn't know my name even. And we just looked at each other and thought, oh man, what is this? He said, you? And I said, yeah. And he said, get in. And I got in, and that day we became the closest friends I've ever had in my life. Funny, start out with funny. I miss him greatly. He was a big part of my life.
Betty Friel.
Not
Betty,
here.
Betty.
Right here, hello.
Ah, hiya Betty. Right, this is a long one. Buckle down. I love watching Emergency, she says. I'll start again. I love watching emergency surgery done during the episodes of Emergency. It is always so real and convincing. I always wonder though, what are you actually looking at and what are you doing that we cannot see? She knows professionals run the set to help make it look real, but it really does look like you're working on something and not just poking around in an empty space.
Well, it's an awful lot of good camera work to start with, but whenever I had to do anything that had to do with an operation, I had a real doctor from Harbor General standing back there telling me what tool to use, what not to use, how to hold it, and where I'm supposed to cut on the person and do whatever, so it would look very authentic, which it was. But of course, I wasn't cutting anybody open or anything. But on minor stuff, we always had 2 paramedics on the set 24/7 for any other type of medical stuff that we did. But no, it's just camera work, and you have to use your imagination that I'm going to cut somebody open, and the camera's right there, and you see me make the incision and whatever, and what you do, and you act like you're doing it, so that helps too, you know, the facial expressions and whatever. So my favorite part was when I had to check a girl's heartbeat. Because you'd have to open a blouse a little bit and reach in there with the stethoscope, and in one of them, I reached in too far, and the doctor said, cut, and I couldn't get my hand out. Poor girl.
Don't hold yourself.
So there was another scene where I have to give birth to a baby in a restaurant. Well, the actors came wearing, what do you call them, stocking hose? Pantyhose. Because I have to really, you know, feel around a little bit. The director says, you can't wear pantyhose in this scene, you have to take them off. I thought, oh, God. So we faked it pretty good. But we did the best we could. For instance, if I was going to use a laryngoscope on a patient that's laying on his back and put the laryngoscope down, my cameraman, great camera operator, we had a deal together that he knew and I knew exactly. Actually, the patient is here, I'm here, the guy has his mouth open, or the woman, whatever. Camera comes, here's the laryngoscope, here's the guy's mouth, and I actually go that far into the mouth, and he takes the camera up to me, and I just slip it out this way and keep pushing like this, and it looks exactly like I put the laryngoscope down. Camera work.
Of course, you didn't want to do emergency when you were first offered it.
No.
Tell about that.
Sorry?
Tell me about that.
Tell you about it?
Yeah, tell me about that.
Go, will you tell her about it?
About that I didn't want to do it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought everybody heard that.
Well, I think you
Yeah, anyway, no. Laramie's over, Wagon Train's over, I've been doing movies and whatever, and now it's 1970, and there's not a Western on the horizon, but Dumb Bob, he's looking for a Western, and my agent keeps saying, there's no Westerns, Bob, you're gonna have to look at something contemporary. And I said, well, I don't want it, I want to do a Western. All of a sudden he comes up to me and he says, look, Jack Webb is doing a new series and he wants you to star in it as the doctor. And I said, doctor? I said, it's a medical series. And he said, yes. I said, I want to do it. And he says, are you crazy? There's no Westerns out there. This is a medical series that's going to be sold. NBC's buying it. Jack Webb is the big boss of it. And I said, well, I never met the man, but I certainly owe him the courtesy to tell him I don't want to do his series. Dumb Bob. So that night, he said, okay, they want you to come to the office. All of the brass from the studio will be at his office, and they all want to meet you, and Jack wants to offer you the part, and after hours. So I said, okay, so I'll go home. I put a suit and tie on, and go to the office at 7 o'clock after hours. Excuse me, walk into the office. All the brass is in there. Everybody's having a cocktail. He's got a big bar set up in his office. Huge. He's a big star at Universal. I mean, yeah, Universal. So I walk up to his desk, And I said, Mr. Webb, it's a pleasure meeting you. I said, but I want to tell you, I'm really not interested in doing a medical series. And he looks up at me and he says, shut up and sit down. Just like that. That took me back a little bit. He says, do you drink? And I said, yeah, I drink. He said, go fix yourself a drink and come back here and sit down. Jack Webb. So I went over to the bar, poured a big vodka, and came back and sat down. I left that office 2 hours later with 12 pages of a 2-hour world premiere series sold with 15-hour episodes sold to go behind it. Just like that. And I tried to turn it down. Emergency. He must have wanted me awfully bad because it would have been easy to say, you know.
Well,
I remember one thing. The next day, he wanted me to see me in the office. We were going to discuss the script, the 12 pages that I took home. Well, when I started reading those 12 pages with words this big, you know, medical terms, I thought, oh man, this is going to be tough. So I went in to meet him the next day for lunch. And in his office, I said, Jack, I said, you got to understand something. For years, I've been used to saying they went that way. I said, this dialogue is pretty tough. And he says, he reaches down under his desk and he pulls out a 4-pound Dorland Medical Dictionary and throws it at me across the desk. Catch it. He says, read that, you'll do fine. And it helped, it really did.
but he saw The Hard Ride, and it was The Hard Ride.
Oh, that's right, yeah, he had seen 10 minutes of Hard Ride and said, that's it, that's Dr. Brackett. Get him.
Okay, here's one from Nettie Petit. Nettie, where are you? Oh, hello. You did a great job today, thank you. Do you have an all-time favourite best day ever?
Best day ever?
Yeah.
Best.
Well, let me just expand a bit. She said, one that stands out as an example of great joy, fulfillment, or fulfillment of a dream.
Well, most of you all know that when they asked me to do Laramie, I turned it down because they wanted me to play Slim. And I said, no, I can't do this. Jess Harper's for me. That's my part. It's my character. And they said, well, you can't have it because John Smith is under contract at the studio and he's got the part. So that's the end of it. So I left the office and I got home. 30 minutes later, my agent calls and says, they want you to come in tomorrow to test for the part of Jess Harper. That was the best day of my life.
Well, Becky Talley, who must be up that way, she has a question that says, how did you actually know that the role of Jess Harper was perfect for you? We know that you were perfect as Jess Harper, but when you read that script, what was it that said to you, this role is perfect?
It was written on paper, right there. This fast gun, good guy, bad guy, it was there, it was me. And it's the best Western part that I ever read in my life, the character. And I knew it. But,
You just know.
yeah, I couldn't play the ranch owner with a little kid brother or whatever. What didn't interest me.
Well, it worked.
Yeah, it worked.
Now, here's a deep, deep question. This is from Rosemary over there. The Laramie writers were ahead of their time with storylines which addressed certain hot-button issues, such as racism, alcoholism, drug addiction, and women's rights. Those episodes are riveting, and I love that Jess Harper is sympathetic to the issues being addressed. My question is, as you were preparing for some of these performances, did you feel they were part of a groundbreaking opportunity in bringing some of these issues to light?
I was thrilled that our writers were allowed to put that stuff on film. for people to see, because it was a sign of the times then to get that out for people to learn from it. And no, I was very happy with everything we got to give to the public. Our writers did. Yeah. Very proud of it. Yeah.
You felt that was groundbreaking?
Oh,
as well?
absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. Grace Riley. This is a long one again. I've read that as you were growing up, you first attended elementary school in New York, then moved to Miami, then Chicago, then Key West, attending a private school, a military academy, and then public schools. When you were a teenager, your family moved to California. You obviously flourished with changing environments and new friends. Grace is wondering, were you ever shy in such situations, or have you always been outgoing?
I've never been shy. No. Was I always outgoing? I don't know. Am I outgoing? I guess I might be. But no. And as far as that goes, you're right. I was born in New York. My mother moved to Florida when I was very young, 6 or 7. Went to school for a little bit, and then my mother was a dancer and going to work in nightclubs. She put me in military school. That's when I was 10 years old in military school. When she married my stepdad, that's when I got out of I was probably 11 to get out of military school. And we moved to Chicago, where he was from. We spent a year or so in Chicago, then back to Miami, and then my mother got a job dancing at a nightclub at Key West, and we moved down to Key West. And that's where I was until 1950 when we moved to California.
And you started as a dancer yourself, doing dancing.
Well, my dad was in the business. He got in the business in 1950 as a dancer. He danced in every musical in Hollywood from 1950 till he retired in the 80s. And when I got in as an extra, I was making $12.05 a day as an extra, which was a lot of money because I just came from being a doorman of Greenwich Chinese Theater for 35 cents an hour. So $12.05 a day plus overtime plus meal penalties. I could walk away with $25 a day as an extra. My dad, as a dancer, was making $250 a week on a musical, and if there were two or three dance numbers in that musical, you got at least 3 weeks of rehearsal and a week to shoot it. So that's a month at $250 for one dance number. And then you're going to do 2 or 3. And he told me, he says, Bob, he said, you're making $25 a day. He said, you ought to go. You know how to dance. Why don't you go on one of these auditions first? So see what happens. So I thought, oh, I'll give it a try. And never dreamed that anybody would hire me. But I went on one, the very first one, and it was for a picture called I Love Melvin with Debbie Reynolds and Donald O'Connor. And it was kind of funny. All these dancers lined up, and the dance director came in. Now, all these dancers are professional dancers that have danced in musicals all their lives, practically, and he's used them. And he knows all their names, and he has somebody come out and do something or whatever, and he walks up to me and he says, you're new, I haven't seen you before. He said, you dance? And I said, oh yeah, I can dance. And he says, let me see you do the time step. So I could do the time step. That's about all I could do. So I went out and I did a time step, and he said, okay. Then he cast everybody for that they needed for the dance thing, and he came up to me and he says, I'm really sorry, but maybe another time. So he said, okay, everybody's dismissed, and we're all walking off the stage, and this assistant comes up to him and says, wait a minute, you forgot about the acrobatic number. He says, well, everybody back, and everybody gets back in line again, including myself, and he comes up to me, he says, you don't by any chance do acrobatics, do you? And I said, yeah, I do. And he said, what do you do? And I said, what do you want? And he says, can you do a backflip, handspring with a backflip? And I said, sure, and I did it, because I couldn't do it. And he said, all right, you're going to be in the acrobatic number. It doesn't shoot for a few weeks, but we'll take your name for it, and you'll be in it. So I got home, and the phone rang and said, report to MGM tomorrow morning and dance. I danced in every dance number in the movie, including the acrobatic one. Did a special thing with Debbie and got my first Screen Actors Guild card from the acrobatic one, playing the cheerleader, because acrobats have to work under SAG. So I immediately got into the Screen Actors Guild that way, which was neat, got my card. That was my first thing, and I got lucky. I did a couple others, and I also got lucky and danced in Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, and Diamonds Are a Girl's Best Friend with Jane, and Marilyn, and I also danced in the acrobatic one with Jane Russell. Well, I know 3 or 4 musicals, which was great, but then I got drafted. The war was on in Korea. And I spent some time over there, and then when I came back, it was Chuck Courtney, who, first of all, I came back, and I told Chuck, I said, hey, I can't work extra for the rest of my life. I can't be a dancer for the rest of my life. I have no education. I quit school in the 9th grade, went through the 9th grade twice, and didn't make it. I said, I have no education. I've got to get some kind of a job that's going to give me longevity throughout my life. And Chuck says, no, you're not. He said, there's a new teacher in town, and he's teaching acting, and we're all in his class, and you're going to join it, and his name is Richard Boone. Dick Boone had done nothing, had not done Have Gun Will Travel or anything. So I finally said, okay, I'll come. And I went to the first class that night with him, and he had told Dick about me, that I was coming home from the Army. And Dick said, okay, I see I got the new kid in class here, come on up. And I walked up, and he said, I want you to do an improvisation. And he picked out a girl, and he gave us a little a sequence to do. He said, now go out and talk about it, and then come in and do the scene. And this is, off the top. So I did it, she did it. I didn't know what I was doing, really. I'd never done an improvisation before. But we did what we were supposed to do. Afterwards, the whole class, at that time it was very small, there was probably about 8 people in it. They all wound up in a bar because there was a bar by Dick's house, and Dick liked to drink and talk to his kids and everything, so we all wound up there. And he came up to me and he said, hey, you did pretty good in that improvisation. He said, I think you got a chance of being an actor. I think you should study with me. I said, how do you know that? How can you say that? And he said, trust me, I saw something. He said, study with me. So I said, okay, I will. And I went back to extra work to support myself and started going to class with him 2 nights a week, 5 hours a night, learning, doing scenes, listening to this man teach whatever he teaches. And at that time, Jimmy Dean was a big star. And every young actor like myself thought he was Jimmy Dean. So when after I would learn a scene and go in and do it, I'd do it with my finger stuck in my ear, talk like Jimmy Dean did. That was a big thing. I didn't even really know about being myself or being an actor. And Dick got very mad at me. He said, I did this twice, thinking I was Jimmy Dean. And he said, you're not Jimmy Dean. And he said, I'm going to give you something to do, and I want you to prepare for it and do it next week. And I said, what? He said, I want you to do Hamlet. And I'm like, what? I can't even spell Hamlet. You want me to do Hamlet? I've never read Hamlet. I said, you can't do this to me. He says, you either do it or get out of class. He says, I'm going to break you from this other stuff. Hamlet. I'm going to do this, the mother-son scene in Hamlet. He picks me out a very, very good actress to do it with. And I thought, oh man, what am I going to do? Jeez. So I go home, and I get to play the book, and I read it, and I don't understand a darn thing. And my dad said, why don't you get the album that Laurence Olivier did? And maybe that'll help. So we go to the record store, and I get the album of Hamlet with Laurence Olivier playing Hamlet. And I started to listen to it, and it started to make sense. And then I go back to the book, and I listen to him, and I look at the book, and I said, wow, this is interesting. And my dad said, my dad was in the class also. He said, I noticed your hunched over with the Jimmy Dean stuff. He said, Hamlet doesn't do that. He said, I think you ought to wear your cowboy boots, because that's gonna make you stand taller. And he said, I think you should dye your army jacket black, because it was OD, you know, all drab color, because it was custom, it was tight, it fit tight. He said, that'll make you stand up better, and when you do this. So sure enough, I worked with this actress who was great, she helped me too. We did that, wore the boots, got a sword, came in, did it, and from that day on, I was never Jimmy Dean again. and I learned to act believably under imaginary circumstances as if it was you. Dick was fabulous. He saved my life that way, and he brought a whole new Robert Fuller to life. Yeah.
Woo-hoo.
Well,
Happy for you, Walpole.
sadly, we're going to have to close this down because we have another engagement with one other question. And I wanted to make sure at the end of our first show, after 3 years, you got a very sensible question from a highly intelligent individual. So, anyway, Ken Stormer, he wants to know. No, I wasn't kidding at the beginning. Ken wants to know how, when you worked at Grauman's, did tissue paper help make you a little bit of money?
Did you see these tire tracks? You can get me arrested.
No, the statute of limitations has run out, I checked.
Well,
Good job, Tony.
today I wouldn't do it. But when I was working for 35 cents an hour at Grauman's Chinese, cigarettes were 20 cents, if anybody can remember. And you'd have a cigarette machine all over the theater, but you would put a quarter in, punch it, get your pack of cigarettes, and your nickel would come back down in the slot. Well, I heard those nickels drop every now and then, and I thought, So one day I got a couple pieces of tissue paper, and I stuffed it up the coin return. And forgot about it. And after the theater closed that night, I had to help close the theater, and everybody's gone, I went over to that cigarette machine, pulled that tissue out, and there was about 75 cents worth of nickels. 75 cents, and I'm making 35 cents an hour. I thought, wow, I have hit gold. So every cigarette machine for a while had tissue. I swear I wouldn't do it today. I only stole a nickel from a person.
Woo-hoo, Walpole.
Well,
Got me bad.
seriously, we're going to have to close it down because we have to. I'm really sorry about that because it's been a long time. We'd have liked to have done a bit longer. Thank you. Hey, you guys. We've got to do it. You get it, we're together.
I'm so happy for you, Walpole. I'm so happy for you.
All of you guys doing the Patrick Robert photo, you go down to the Oak Room, we'll see you down there.
Thank you, Tony.